Alright, so since the Mondstadt Aristocracy period, taking place about 1,000 years ago, has a lot of stuff going on, has a great many events taking place, a great many people, and quite a few things, I decided to split this up into a few different sub-videos. So this one's just going to be about the basics of the aristocracy, talking about the Lawrence clan, the rebellion, and Vennessa, who are really the important takeaways from the aristocratic period in Mondstadt, I suppose. But then the next few videos are also going to go over lesser-known characters like the Wanderer's Troupe, Parsifal, Eberhard, the Gladiator. Let's see, who else? I'll get there when I'll get there. In any case, the point is, this is going to go over today Vennessa, the Lawrence clan, and the rebellion. Alright, so the first thing to know here is that a majority, well, okay, not a majority. There's a decent bit of information available through the Genshin Impact manga, which is presented in probably a more entertaining read than the majority of information currently available through things like books. Well, okay, The Legend of Vennessa is not bad. Through things like talking to Dr. Edith, doing Jean's story quests, and having to go back and look at the archives of those, etc. All of that being said, however, the manga is not necessarily the most reliable source. So it's considered, okay, it's technically canon. It's mostly accurate. The events taking place with Kale and everything are considered to be canon. That being said, there's definitely a few places where it contradicts established game canon, most notably in the timing of at least when it comes to Vennessa, most notably, there's a mistranslation, but in the timing of exactly when Vennessa was bought by the Lawrence clan, and in a few other places, such as through the mistranslation of the destruction of the tower, the statue of Barbatos. There we go, perfect. Sorry, my brain is a little bit fried today. But, in any case, let's just start this off. So, 2,600 years ago, where the last video ended, the Lawrence clan were ruled by their lovely, wise, very nice leader named Vennessa. However, over the next 1,600 years, the aristocracy would devolve and become more like a dictatorial ruling class who engaged in practices like slavery and gladiatorial combat. Gladiatorial combat actually originated, according to Sacrificial Greatsword in a religious context of the Locker clan. I believe that might also be in Royal Greatsword, whatever it's called. Royal Claymore? I'm not actually sure what that one's called. That being said, by the time we get to the aristocracy, it is used instead to... Okay, this auto-targeting sucks. It is instead used as a way of... a method of entertainment to eliminate rebellious slaves, and etc. So it's not really the most enjoyable thing. So from what we know, the Lawrence clan were the primary instigators of this new, rather immoral aristocracy. According to biography of Gunhildr, the Gunhildrs were against this, but didn't have much actual power. How reliable this is, since the book was written by Gunhildr, is unknown, but they did not get banished along with the rest of the aristocracy, so we can assume, at least to some extent, they probably helped in the rebellion. Let's see. All of that being said, this eventually culminates with a girl named Vennessa. So Vennessa is from Natlan, and she is known as a Maraudin, a child Marauda, whatever you want to call it according to the manga. Venti calls her that, so you know, it's a pretty accurate source relative to a lot of other things. That being said, we also know from there that her clan lived in these grasslands and not actually in Natlan. I don't want to say Natlan proper, but they were roaming the grasslands. They weren't actually... I think a good way to phrase this. They weren't necessarily part of, like, a city or anything. They weren't kidnapped, per se. So they were roaming, but then they ran into Ursa the Drake 10 years before the events of the manga take place. That's also according to the manga. A lot of this is coming from the manga. And then they were hounded and starved out for 4 days, and presumably then captured by the Mondstadt aristocracy, at which point they became slaves. Vennessa became known as the Lionfang Knight, and was a very talented fighter and gladiator in the arena, and at some point she was purchased by the Lawrence clan. So here's one of those points of discrepancy, which is that according to the manga, Vennessa was purchased by the Lawrence clan approximately 1 day before she had the infamous fight with Ursa the Drake, and before Venti revealed himself as Barbatos, etc. However, according to Ancient Investigation Journal Book 2, at this point in time, Vennessa was already a slave of the Lawrence clan, based on the fact that the manga has other discrepancies with issues like the timing of Diluc's return to Mondstadt. It's probably better to take it from Ancient Investigation Journal Book 2, since Luther would know what he was talking about. We'll get to that in one of the next few videos, since that also involves the aristocracy. Let's see. Oh yes, okay. So Vennessa is a slave of the Lawrence clan, and at some point she meets Venti in the marketplace and defends him from Barca Lawrence, who is insulted that Venti had the absolute gal to pick up the Ludi Harpassum ball to throw to the crowd. So contextually here, it's important to note that during Ludi Harpassum, there's usually a maiden chosen to throw this ball. And whoever catches it will receive good luck and fortune. Unfortunately, underneath the rule of the aristocracy, this good luck and fortune was taken a little bit farther to say that you would also have quote-unquote good luck when it came to quote-unquote convincing the quote-unquote lucky maiden chosen to sleep with you the next night. Venti obviously was not a huge fan of this and chose to catch the Ludi Harpassum ball instead, got in trouble with Barca Lawrence. Barca Lawrence was insulted about this, Vennessa stopped Barca Lawrence, etc. And the next day, Vennessa and her clan, including her younger sister Linda, depending on where you're going off of, were forced to fight in a gladiatorial arena outside the city. However, while they were promised that they would go free if they could win this fight, rather than fighting against other humans, they were forced to fight against Ursa the Drake. More properly speaking, Lord Lawrence, the head of the Lawrence clan at the time, was sacrificing them to Ursa the Drake. Upon seeing this, many citizens of the city were upset, but didn't have any actual real power to stop it. But Venti showed up and blessed Vennessa with magical wind power, I suppose, temporarily, and then showed up and demanded that Barca Lawrence essentially hand the city over to Vennessa. Sorry, not Barca Lawrence. He demanded that Lord Lawrence's, the Lawrences in general, the aristocracy, whatever you want to call it, hand control of Mondstadt over to Vennessa. At this point, the manga ends. We know from other tales, like for example Song of Broken Pines, that there was a larger rebellion formed as a result of this. Vennessa was joined by the Nameless Shepherd, an age saint of the Church of Favonius, according to the Song of Broken Pines. Ballads of the Squire details the Dawn Knight Ragnvindr, as well as the flute. Talks about how Dawn Knight Ragnvindr joined Vennessa's rebellion. We also have Kreuzlied, who also joined, a member of the Wanderer's Troop. That's, again, we're going to get to that in the next video. Who was joining the rebellion, and let's see, anybody else? I believe those are all the notable figures who joined into the rebellion, who we have actual titles / names. The Goonhilders helped, etc. Eventually, we also know that quite a few of the aristocracy soldiers turned on them as a result of Venti creating a fake contract with Rex Lapis that dictated that the aristocracy were planning to sell their troops to Rex Lapis and essentially flee Mondstadt. That's according to one of Venti's stories, but it turns out that was actually forged by Venti himself. So that wasn't actually accurate, but it certainly helped the rebellion to win the fight with the aristocracy. Eventually, as a result of them winning, the aristocracy would be banished, not killed, considering that we have Eula, of course, as I'm using right now, but they would be exiled from Mondstadt, except for the Goonhilders, and yeah, that's about it there. So later in her life, we don't have that many details about exactly what Vennessa did. This is a bit everyone did later in her life, but we do know that at some point in time, at Windrise, she ascended to become a goddess in Celestia. There's a lot of sources that corroborate this, including the manga when Venti's talking, along with, okay, maybe we should just whack this, along with sources like Dr. Edith, who talks about how she ascended to become a goddess in Celestia. I believe one of Venti's stories talks about it as well. Jean's story quest talks about it. There's a lot of sources for this. So in any case, Vennessa ascends to become a goddess in Celestia. However, according to, I believe it's a herald without adherence during the Archon quest, we will be reunited. Dainsleif also talks about how she is flying underneath the light of the gods or something along those lines, which implies that she's not necessarily an equal to the other gods in Celestia. However, regardless of all this, Vennessa does become a goddess and becomes known as the Falcon of the West at this time. We'll also be talking about the exact titles of the Four Winds in a later video, since that's also a little bit complicated, but that is the long and short of Vennessa's rebellion, and essentially the rebellion against the aristocracy as a whole 1,000 years ago in Mondstadt. So I think the next video is actually just going to talk about the Four Winds, since we probably need to cover that, including, yep, let's talk about the Four Winds. Okay, that's it for this video, so there's just going to be a few short videos detailing the aristocracy after this. Thanks for listening, and have a nice day.